Welcome to the World United.
Welcome to the World United.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Spirituality and Women's Empowerment session of the Global Transformation Festival USA 2021. We are so excited to bring this festival to the world and to share the wisdom and the love and the passion and the unity consciousness that is literally exploding from every session in this conference. It's been amazing all day long. And so I'm thrilled the speakers today are going to inspire you. I have to warn you, you may even cry as you listen to them. Beautiful, beautiful souls that will be speaking to us today. So, and not only cry, but laugh. Amazing people. We are going to begin with Manja and I hope I say this right, Podratz. You can correct me if I said that wrong. But so Manja is, oh, I just jumped. Let me find it again. There we go. Manja is a holistic brain health coach, cancer survivor, and an author. And she is also a mother and board certified holistic health practitioner, AADP, and a BA in natural medicine. She's certified brain health coach, certified hypnotherapist, yoga teacher, 200-hour under the International Yoga Certification, Reiki Master Teacher, PhD in Media Studies, PhD in Theory of Architecture. Somebody spent a lot of time in the books and studying and writing. And she says in her bio, she says, I empower my clients to heal from trauma and align their vision with their beliefs, words, and actions to unlock their full potential. The human being is made up of layers. Healing needs to address the energy, emotional, mental, and physical bodies. So with that, we are going to let her jump into her speech that is entitled, Healing Begins in the Heart, a Quantum Medicine Approach to Breast Cancer. So ladies and gentlemen, Manja Podratz.
Thank you so much for the nice introduction, Sean. Thank you. And kudos to you for still being here with a high energy after reporting and moderating all day long. So yes, I want to talk about exactly that. The healing begins in the heart. And it's a thing. Breast cancer is one of these keywords that often are enough to result in sort of, worried or, worried or sad reaction from people. So, and there's a certain reason for that. When we look at cancer statistics, they can be quite frightening. So breast cancer is currently the most common cancer worldwide. It is currently there are over 7 million people diagnosed and living with breast cancer, making it the most prevalent cancer in the world. And in the year 2020, 2.3 million women were diagnosed with breast cancer, of which 685,000 died. This year alone in the United States, an estimated 282 cases were diagnosed, and about 48,000 are expected to die just in this 1 year, only in this one country. So, and breast cancer, again, is the most common cancer in women overall. And that is not only true for the United States, but for 140 out of the 184 countries in the world. So all of them have incredibly high incidence rates. So which means that this is quite scary. There's a lot of hope, a lot of optimism around research, around the help coming from medicine, etc. However, since 2008, worldwide breast cancer incidence has increased by more than 20%, and mortality has increased by 14%. So we are talking about the last 20 years, or not even, the last 13 years. The last 13 years. So however, over the last 20 years, there has never in history, been a time before where as much money has been invested in breast cancer research as during these last 20 years. Nonetheless, we are seeing higher mortality rates than ever. How come? How come? With all these advancements, left and right, how come there's still no cure, no fix to this high problem? So when we look at that, is this thing, and I dare to make a bold claim, and obviously that's obviously that can be criticized. So, but I dare to make a bold claim, and that is that Western medicine has not taken time to try to understand the disease. What really has advanced is the field of engineering. The field of engineering, and the engineers deserve all the honors. They have developed everything from more specific and precise diagnostic imaging devices to everything that has been developed with minimal invasive robotic supported surgery, etc. So the field of engineering has advanced unbelievably. However, the medicine field is stuck at the same place it's been literally for thousands of years. The first documented case of breast cancer can be found in an ancient Egyptian papyrus that is 3,000 years old and describes several cases. So breast cancer is not a modern age disease. It's not a modern day problem, but it has been around for at least 3,000 years. Some of the ancient doctors, such as, well-known names to this day, such as Hippocrates and Galen, already knew that early detection, that early diagnosis is important, and that early diagnosis improves chances of survival. Galen and Hippocrates already knew that there are different kinds of tumors. They could already distinguish between rather benign and more aggressive malignant tumors. They already practiced surgeries and had an understanding of cancer, breast cancer, being a systemic disease. Talking back then about the black bile, which comes also with a state of melancholia. So over the centuries, the idea of black bile has been replaced with the idea of cancer possibly spreading through the lymph. That was only one theory again. Back in the 4th century, a surgery method has been practiced that would only take out the tumor itself, with a little bit of a circumcision, a little bit of a margin around the tumor. However, since the 16th century, full mastectomies have been practiced. Full mastectomies, surgeries, and mind you, back in those days, they didn't know anything about anesthesia yet. So didn't know anything about certain hygiene, wound care yet, and far less about reconstructive surgeries. So, however, full mastectomies have been the standard care in various varying surgical techniques all the way into the 20th century. Since the 1930s, radiation has been introduced. And then later on in the 1970s, chemotherapy, And today we know the hormone therapies, the more targeted cell therapies, etc. So, of course, all of this has made it a little bit easier on the women, because obviously experiencing a surgery with or without anesthesia alone makes a big difference. However, the approach hasn't changed much. And what do I mean by that? The approach is still a fighting against the cancer as the evil. Cancer is the bad thing that needs to be fought with all the weapons we can find. And what also has not changed much is the idea that things have to be destroyed, things have to be burned out, things have to be removed. Before even estrogen receptors have been discovered, already surgical methods were conducted, where also in the 17th, 18th, 19th, all the way into the 20th century, where in addition to the mastectomy, lymphectomies have been practiced, but also ovaries have been completely removed. Ovaries, then later the pituitary glands, then later the adrenal glands, because it was found that still the breast cancer would grow, because the body is smart and the body finds ways. If you remove one organ or one gland, it will compensate and another organ or gland will take over. So in our endocrine system is a system. It's not just a collection of individual glands, but it's a system. So removing ovaries, removing the pituitary gland, removing the breasts, etc., etc., yes, has inhibited the production of estrogen, but has not increased survival rates, has not empowered women to feel right in their female bodies, and to approach and believe in a rebalancing of a disturbed system. So let me go there a little deeper. So again, what do I mean by that? It's about 85% of breast cancer cases occur in women who do not have a history of breast cancer in their families. So without a history of breast cancer in the families, you may assume that there's no genetic predisposition, right? So 85% means it is the vast majority of breast cancer cases. Nonetheless, doctors agree that any abnormal cell growth, cancerous cell growth, occurs due to a genetic defect. If it is not an inherited genetic defect, it must be an acquired genetic defect. So, however, how do we acquire genetic defects? And this is where it can get sometimes a little bit funny, yeah? So, because, for instance, the website US Breast Cancer Statistics states these breast cancer cases occur due to genetic mutations that happen as a result of the aging process and life in general, rather than inherited mutations. How can we possibly, in the 21st century, with all our knowledge in biochemistry, biophysics, everything, genetics, how can we possibly let researchers get away with as general a statement as these genetic mutations happen as a result of the aging and life in general? The website continues to state the most significant risk factor for breast cancer are sex, meaning being a woman, and age, meaning growing older. Well, that is like saying the most significant risk for dying is being born. Like, that is not an answer. That cannot possibly be a satisfying answer after hundreds of millions of dollars have been invested into research. So, now, again, Everybody agrees. Abnormal cell growth occurs due to defects in the DNA. So my question is, what triggers, what causes this defect? Again, every treatment approach so far is treating only a symptom. All that we have accomplished is getting smaller and smaller. Instead of chopping off the entire breast, they have actually used guillotine-like devices back in the days. So instead of just chopping it off, now we can go with a minimal invasive surgery. Or instead of targeting big areas of tissue, we can now act with a more cell-specific, more targeted therapy. Again, it doesn't matter if you remove a larger part of tissue or only individual cells. You're still removing. You're still addressing a symptom of an already diseased cell. A cell that can already be found and identified as abnormal, meaning it's a symptom. But what causes this abnormality? So, see, when people develop atherosclerosis, for instance, in their feet, it may be due to having experienced multiple fractures. Multiple fractures. So what is the cause of these fractures? Well, they may have been playing soccer all life long and may have been broken their toes repeatedly. Or they may have been ballerinas all life long and may have severely strained their toes. So there is the root cause. Dancing ballet, training hard, multiple, athletic activities. There's a root cause. Okay. So now, what causes the fracture, aka what causes the DNA defect? And that is what I'm interested in. Interested in not just early diagnosis, but in understanding the actual disease. And so now quantum medicine introduces a very interesting new model, which is based on the ancient Indian concept, a yogic concept known as the 5 koshas. In the 5 koshas, they talk about that we have a food body, Annamaya kosha, which is our tangible physical body. But we also have a vital energy body, Pranamaya kosha, which we can't touch, but we can still feel it as the movement of our breath, as prana moving in our bodies. We have Manomaya kosha, the mental or emotional body. Again, we can't touch or see our thoughts or our emotions, but we can feel them move in our bodies. And we know that we can sense the movement of our thoughts in different areas as we sense certain emotions. So we know it's real. There's something to, calling it, distinguishing it as a different layer of the human makeup. So then there is Vijnana Maya Kosha, the wisdom body, which we experience in deep meditations, in our dreams, with our intuitive guidance, all of that. And of course, there's Ananda Maya Kosha, the bliss body, where we connect to spiritual guidance and our higher selves. So with that, based on that model, quantum medicine introduces a paradigm shift on how we look. Instead of starting with looking at the physical body, searching for a symptom, searching for a defect, an abnormality in the physical body, and then plain trying to remove it, we are looking at the other bodies, looking at what triggered this imbalance and how can it be restored. So it is not a fighting against something, but a fighting for something, a fighting for a return to balance, a fighting to support our own self-healing capacity, a showing up, a participating in our own healing. And the downward causation model is basically a translation of the Indian model of the 5 koshas. So the downward causation model teaches that everything starts as higher consciousness, as pure consciousness, as the ground of all being in the supramental body, and triggers then through as a frequency, as a vibrant, into our energy body, then into the mental, the emotional, all the way as a manifestation in the physical body. So down that way, there are all kinds of possibilities on where we can experience a certain trauma. So one theory is that an imbalance is caused in our system by a severe shock on our system. And this severe shock can be caused by a very painful loss, for instance, when we experience grief. It can also be experienced by repeated and long-term rejection, or by disturbed relationships with our mothers, when we feel again rejected, not lovable. Sometimes it happens in people who have been raised by mothers with unresolved trauma. It can also be triggered by our own inability to forgive. So all of that, again, in the yogic traditions, are known as heart chakra issues, heart chakra blocks, trauma. So I'm talking breast cancer here. Of course, there are many other chakras, and of course, they can be affected by emotional or mental trauma as well. And that, again, causes a shock on the energy system. However, right now, talking about breast cancer, everything is related to the heart chakra energy. So there have been, this is not just mere metaphysics or esoteric talk, okay? So quantum physics has brought beautiful insights that teach us why things happen this way. We have learned about quantum entanglement. We have learned about how our very thoughts change chemistry, change measurably vibration and frequencies in our system. We have learned all these different things already. So trying not to go over way too long, but a little bit. Let me dive.
You have about 5 minutes left. Okay.
Beautiful. Yes, beautiful. Thank you very much. So this is the whole idea. The idea is that when we experience a severe shock, the sudden loss of our spouse, or the sudden loss of our beloved child or our parent, or similar things that have this massive shock on our heart chakra, that causes a shift. It causes a subtle trigger on our endocrine system, starting with the thymus gland. It causes signals to the adrenals, putting us in elevated stress response, often long-term. So meaning it causes shifts in the body. They again are measurable in the physical body, for instance, as hormonal imbalances. So, and here is this thing. So I have been conducting breast cancer studies, a breast cancer study just over these last 2 years, where I have been working with women, different age group, different walks of lives. They have chosen various different treatment routes for themselves. However, they all have striking similarities in their biographies. Meaning, it started often, either early in life, with traumatic parent, often the mother relationship. It continued with PMS, PMDD issues later on, continued with fertility issues. Often these women had IVF treatments or, other things like that. Sometimes ended up having hysterectomies. Then often they have experienced harsh, dramatic divorces. And then they experience, it goes on and on. Certain symptoms start adding up. Disturbed sleep, sometimes depressive disorders, sometimes, so it varies a little bit, and then eventually ends with a breast cancer diagnosis, and often a hormone receptor sensitive breast cancer diagnosis. And I say, if that would have been rebalanced 15 years ago, it would have, there would not have been this necessity for the women to go all the way to developing cancer. So it is known that our DNA is pure frequency. When you drizzle it down from the molecules all the way to electrons, photons, all the way to the quarks, all the way to pure energy. It is known now that our DNA emits photons. We are literally beings of light. And this photon emission stops the day we die. So, but now, when we experience severe shocks on our emotional or mental system, if the shock is severe enough, affected persons experience PTSD. So, but sometimes this shock is not in the form severe that it results in PTSD, but it results in a behavior where we tell ourselves, oh, that's just life, I need to move on, until the next painful event happens, and we again say, I shake it off, I just move on. And what happens, these shocking events accumulate in our system and keep accumulating. And if we aren't mindful enough, with a very healthy lifestyle, with positive self-talk, with an established spiritual connection, with regular meditation, regular detox, etc. pp. If we don't practice that as self-care routine to constantly readjust our own system mindfully, and when we instead say, oh, I just need to keep going, I just need to keep performing at my work, at my job, blah, 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 for my kids, then we push ourselves over the edge. And our cells lose this ability of cleansing and repairing themselves. Our DNA ends up showing certain defects, and the cancer shows up as that very, very last warning sign. Please, what in the heck does need to happen before you finally pay attention to me? So the cancer is not fighting against us, but is trying to be the last call for help. So besides shifting this approach to the downward causation model, and instead of starting with looking at purely the symptom in the body and saying, okay, this is cancer type so and so, and we're going to treat with chemo, or we're going to treat with hormones, or drizzling it back and saying, okay, tell me about your life, tell me about everything you remember and when that was. So, and drizzling it back and finding the initial event that threw the system out of balance, and starting with therapeutic measurements right there, teaching the healing right there. And by teaching the healing, I mean, it's not ever the doctor or the healer or the therapist that heals, but the person has to participate in their healing. So what that also means is that I'm making a case for women here to affirm their feminine energy fully, because we have created throughout the entire 20th century a society that values everything that is yang energy. We have created a society that values accomplishments, achievements, success, fast paid, alertness, assertiveness, and so on and so on and so on. And yes, a lot of great things can be accomplished based on those values. However, it needs the balance. And the balance are yin energies based on, yang energies is competition. Yin energy is cooperation, is creativity, is compassion, is rest. So instead of constantly trying to find new ways on how we can stimulate ourselves to perform maybe even longer and to squeeze a little more out of our cell batteries, thinking of what can we do to rebalance and recharge? And this is what I'm really hoping is coming, because I see this shift in our society with events like we are here attending today, that people are more interested now in collaboration, in cooperation. Yes, in trying to learn from one another. Hey, the masculine energy, what can you bring to the table? How can I honor that? The feminine energy, hey, what can you bring to the table? How can we honor that? How can we work together as a big community and enhance one another? How can we find creative solutions and solutions inspired by spiritual guidance? Because sometimes our human mind takes us only so far, because again, research proves it over and over that knowledge evolves as our needs evolve. It is never complete. Spiritual guidance is the wisdom that stands as truth. So, and hereby I would like to close my talk. Thank you so much.
Wow, Manja, thank you so much. Seriously, beautiful. I haven't.
Not too heavy bringing all these
Sure it's heavy. It's cancer. It's but you brought some amazing, beautiful light to it, and it took us on a journey, which is beautiful. And a lot of the information, right? I mean, I had no idea about that information that you shared in the first half. About the history and where we have come and how far we haven't come. and how now the answer truly is going deeper and going into the vibrations and the healing process. And I love that I was talking to a friend of mine who is a healer recently, and exactly what you said. So he said the healer doesn't heal. A healer is not one who heals. A healer helps the person heal themselves and facilitates healing, which perfectly in alignment with what you were talking about. Beautiful. So yeah, I am excited to dive into the panel when we get there.